Okay, now that we have looked at the background of how you can multiply a binomial times a binomial, now I want us to set it up one more time and see how we can practice. Again, please note that the directions say find the product, because that's what you'll be looking for on the test or quizzes. Product just means to multiply them together. Now we did talk about there's two methods to be able to do this. I am going to now focus on the box method. What I'm going to do is set up the box. So I'm going to take 6x minus 2 and put that at the top. 6x, and then negative 2 will be the second one. So this one's going to deal with some negative numbers, which is going to make it a little more challenging. Just make sure you keep the negative with the number when you put it in there. So then I'm going to take negative 2x on the side, and then a positive 5. Okay, so remember we write our binomials on the top and along the side, create our box. And then I'm going to give you a minute to work on it and see if you can fill in your 4 boxes. So take 1 minute and see if you can do it. Okay, so on this one I helped you set up your box, but I wanted you to practice seeing if you could figure out what numbers go inside the boxes. Now let's do a quick review of that. Remember, it works like a multiplication table. So I take the thing on top of this box and on the side. So those two things would be multiplied together to go in the top left-hand corner. So a 6x times a negative 2x. Now remember, we always multiply the numbers together, so 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. And then the variables. So x times x gives me x squared. As you go through your box, then I do the negative 2 times the negative 2x. So again, the numbers times each other. A negative 2 times a negative 2. 2 negatives gives me a positive, and 2 times 2 is 4. There's just a single x, so I keep the x there. For the bottom left, I would take the 6x from that, and then the 5 here. So 5 times 6x, 5 times 6 is 30. Again, there's a single x. And finally, for my lower right-hand corner, I would take the negative 2 times the 5, and a negative 10 is what I would get. So once you get your 4 boxes filled in, as we talked about from there, it becomes combining like terms. Well, the upper left-hand corner is the only x squared term, so I have negative 12x squared. And then I look for all the x's to the first power, and it's not a coincidence that they happen along the diagonal. So we're always adding the diagonal together. And a positive 30x plus a positive 4x, the 30 plus 4 is 34. And then I just keep the x as the like term. And then finally I have a constant of negative 10. So you should have ended up with negative 12x squared plus 34x minus 10. So once again, when we multiply a binomial times a binomial, we get a quadratic as our answer. Okay, we're going to do one final example together here, or more so on your own, but first I'm going to introduce one new concept. Sometimes you'll see a single binomial, like in this case 6b minus 5, but it's going to be to a power. So this is saying do 6b minus 5 quantity squared. Now when we square something, for example, if I tell you to do 3 squared, so let's do a side example. If I ask you to do 3 squared, hopefully you're thinking that is 3 times 3. Okay, when you square something, it means to multiply it by itself. So in this case, that would be 9. It's no different when you're taking a binomial squared. This is saying take 6b minus 5 times 6b minus 5. So that's the only new thing from this slide. What I want you to do now is take a minute, and this time you're going to even try to set up your box on your own, then fill in the box and see if you can come up with a final answer. I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that. So that's been just about a minute. I'll give you another minute to finish up, but want to make sure that anybody who might be stuck at this point, we can help set up the box. So again, just like we did before, I would take 6b, make sure you keep a -5 with the 5. Then again on the other side, I'd have the same 6b and a -5. So in case you were stumped with where to begin, you should start with your box looking like this. Now take one more minute, see if you can finish up. Okay, so again, once we have our box set up in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to take the first term from each, the 6b times the 6b. Again, 6 times 6 is 36. b times b gives me b squared. In this box, upper right-hand corner, I would do -5 times 6b. -5 times 6 gives me a -30, and then times b. Bottom left, I would do 6b times -5. Well, that gives me -30 times b. And then finally, I do the -5 times -5. 2 negatives gives me a positive, and 5 times 5 is 25. My final step, again, combine like terms. I've got the positive 36b squared. The diagonal has my two like terms with b to the first power. -30 plus -30 gives me -60. So I could either write that as plus a -60, or I could just write it as -60. And those are my b terms. And then finally, I have my plus 25. So your final answer should have been 36b squared minus 60b plus 25. And that's how we find the products of two binomials times each other. From here, your next step is to do your homework assignment. If you go back to our Moodle page, underneath this video, there was a link that said Slominski 6.1 Day 1 Worksheet. I need you to go through that and do numbers 1 through 15 odd. It pops up as just a bunch of problems. It's a worksheet online, so just do the problems in your notebook and be sure to show your work so that when we get back, we can help you out. Thanks, and hope you're having a great day.